All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nesli Akdeniz. I'm an assistant professor and an extension specialist in biological systems engineering at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So today it is one of those days. It is very sunny. It looks like warm, but when you go outside, it is so cold. So we will warm up today by looking at some pictures we took over the summer. So we will talk about sampling air emissions from livestock pastures using a drone-based system. So this presentation, this study is part of my PhD student Doi Young's dissertation. So lots of credits goes to her. All right, so before I dive into our measurements, how we did the measurements, I have a couple of notes here. So there are new restrictions about using drones. I want to mention that this study was completed before those restrictions started. So the deadline is December 22nd of this year. So all these studies were completed before that deadline. And then we do have a remote pilot license. We cannot just purchase a drone. When I first started this study, this is how I thought about it. Like, oh, I can purchase a drone and start flying it. It doesn't work like that. You need to get a remote pilot license. So we are both my student and RI remote pilots. And we visited all these farms with the permission of the farmers. So we didn't just fly our drone on people's farm, but we have the consent of the owners. All right, so what is the goal? So this is a quick presentation. I will quickly introduce the idea. So when we look at the literature, most of the measurements are based on data in the literature are mostly model-based estimates. So since it is kind of difficult, so our standard method is you're seeing here is a dynamic flux chamber. But if you think about a pasture, right, even a paddock can be like easily 2 acres, 3 acres, right? So how many dynamic flux chambers can you have? How many students can you hire to do these measurements, right? So the data in the literature, they rely on model-based estimates. So we developed this method, so flying our drone and scanning the whole surface of the pasture and collecting air emissions. So we have a good representation of the all air emissions coming out from the pasture. That was the goal. And yesterday I was in a summit, dairy summit, and they really emphasized we need to have a shared value. So if I need to have a shared value, my shared value for this research with the farmers I work with is sustainability. The goal was to document, so we know there are some environmental benefits of having pastures, and the goal was to document those carbon benefits, the environmental benefits of the pastures. So there are different programs. So I am located in Madison, Wisconsin. So it is Dane County. It is one of the large counties in Wisconsin. And Dane County has a program called Continuous Cover Program. And then this program provides some initiatives. So if you want to convert your cornfield to a pasture, there are some incentives that will be provided. So I'm not saying we should convert cornfields to pastures, but sometimes farmers choose to do it. It is part of their retirement plan. So if you want to scale down, if you want to have this continuous cover, if you want to have pastures, there are some incentives that are provided. So they are measuring the environmental benefits of having pastures. And this study is not a part of that program, but this project was written with the hope that it provides some supporting information to those kind of initiatives. All right, so this is the drone we used. This is one of the dairy pastures we visited. This is the Marshville site. So this is a regular drone, you see, and there is a black box under the drone. So it is our air analyzer. So air analyzer is kind of attached to the drone. And then you see that long tube, it is our sampling tube. And at the end of the sampling tube, you see our wind sensor. So if we can measure the wind speed and wind direction. So this is a close-up view. So there are a lot of sensors inside, so we can measure more than one gas. So what we measured and recorded: temperature, barometric pressure, wind speed, wind direction. Then we had the gases: methane, CO2, VOC, H2S, ammonia. Then we had PM1. So we know PM2.5 and PM10, right? We measured also PM1, those small particles. And then we had the air pump that keeps sucking air. And then there is another system also. We can say, okay, stop sampling now, and then we can send the air sample inside an air bag, and then we can bring back the air to the lab and then to the further analysis. And then you see a close-up view of the sensor. So we were able to open up this air analyzer and change the sensors when we needed to. So when we first started this study, the feedback was like, okay, you're sampling air emissions, but there is something called propeller downwash, right? And propeller downwash affects the air emissions, affects the concentrations, it's kind of diluting, right? So this is the reason we use the air sampling tube. So it is 88 centimeters, so 44, 44. When you add them, it becomes 88 centimeter. And then we were able to sample it outside of the propeller downwash effect. So here you see I'm holding a colored smoke, and then let's assume this colored smoke is the air emissions coming out from pasture or from soil or from cornfield. So as you can see, if it is pointing to upwind, so is the key point. It needs to point to the upwind. Then we are able to sample outside of this propeller downwash effect. All right, so we used an app, flight planning app. So when we went there, we were able to collect samples from the same location. So usually pastures, these were rotationally grazed pastures, so they were divided into paddocks. So we collected our samples from different paddocks. We followed an order, but we were able to, when we wanted to replicate our measurement, we were able to sample from the same location. And this is the software we use. So this is kind of, we had used the tablet, and then when we were flying our drone, we were able to see the concentrations. And then this also records it into the cloud server. So when we come back to the lab, we are able to download this data. So this is the kind of quality control step we did. So we measured using our flying air analyzer. We also collected samples inside an airbag. So when the drone was flying, we were able to do it. And then we brought it back to the lab, and we used our GC to analyze that bag sample. We also used our traditional method, dynamic flux chamber method, to see how much difference how close we were able to get. So this is the kind of data processing. We tried many different things. One way of looking data is using kriging interpolation and preparing emission maps similar to the ones shown here. So as you can see, even in the paddock, emissions vary a lot. So you see those blue areas or purple areas, they're kind of lower in emissions. And then we have these yellow or red areas, kind of like hot areas, and they're higher in air emissions. So this is my students' kind of graphical abstract. So in this study, we visited 2 dairy sites, 2 beef sites, and we had 1 sheep site. And each site visited 5 times during the grazing period. So it started like late May. It was kind of wet spring, so it started late May, beginning of June to the late September, early October. So one challenge was so when we are thinking about air emissions, we need to think about the stocking density, right? So one challenge was having the same stocking density. So it was kind of difficult to compare the sites. But at least we were able to get similar stocking densities for the same animal species. So beef 1 was kind of similar to beef 2, dairy 1 was kind of similar to dairy 2, and unfortunately we had only one sheep size, so this was one of the limitations of this study. All right, so when we look at the CO2, CO2 is kind of easy, right? Since we have CO2, there's atmospheric level of CO2. So when we look at the CO2 data, so the measurements using our drone-based system and measurements using our GC, that air sample, back sample, they were kind of close to each other. So our drone system, our back system overestimated only 9.7 ppm. So when we are thinking about the level we have here, right, 550 ppm. So it was just slightly overestimated. So we were close enough. But when we look at when we compare different sites, data was all over the place. So I won't be able to say, okay, this site was emitting more air emissions, but there were a lot of factors affecting. So when we look at the CO2, dairy sites, they had significantly higher emissions than the beef and the sheep. When we look at NH3, so one difference between dairy 1 and dairy 2 was an organic farm. So they never applied fertilizer. So dairy 1 emissions, ammonia emissions were higher than dairy 2 ammonia emissions. And then when we think about ammonia emissions, or when I show data like this, maybe it doesn't, ring a bell, but when we think about concentrations, all these concentrations were slightly over than the atmospheric level. So there were some emissions coming out of the pastures, but there wasn't anything very significant. So I can go through these, but like one thing that affected PM 2.5 was the rainfall. So if there was a rainfall event before we sampled, PM 2.5 emissions went down, but it didn't significantly affect the PM 10 emissions. So forage density. So dairy 2 was an organic farm, so they didn't apply fertilizer, but forage density was kind of low. And then it was a significant source of PM10 emissions. H2S, again, we found an interaction between species and rainfall for H2S. As we know, H2S is kind of anaerobic gas. So once the rainfall, following the rainfall event, H2S emissions increased. So when we look at the methane, dairy sites emitted more methane, so it is expected, I guess. And then NO2 and N2O, nitrous oxide. So this is one of the gases that we know it is related to rainfall event, right? When the pores of the soil, they are filled up, then we see more N2O emissions. And then another thing that affected N2O emissions is the vegetative cover. So if there is enough vegetative cover, so it lowered N2O emissions. So that pasture, that grass was able to use the nitrogen applied. So the cycle from nitrogen to N2O emissions, there was a reduction in that cycle. And this is kind of our like statistical analysis. We wanted to see the impact of rainfall. So you're seeing yes, rainfall or no rainfall before our site visits. So rainfall events affected our H2S, NO2, and NH3 emissions. And then it is kind of difficult to say dairy was higher than beef or sheep was higher than beef. Like we cannot put that in that order. But what I can say is rainfall increased our emissions. So it affected N2O, H2S, VOC and PM2.5, but it affected PM2.5 in a positive way. And low vegetative cover resulted elevated CO2, ammonia, and PM emissions. So these are two papers that are published. So I will stop here for just 1 second. So if you want to scan the QR code. I generated these QR codes, so you can just Google the titles. They are both open access papers, or you can always reach out to me. So if you know my name, you know my email address. I always say like that it is nestle@visc.edu. And my time is almost up, so I want to finish up with this slide. So when I present this study, the question is, oh, okay, you did the pastures. Now the next step will be the cornfields. Yes, the next step will be cornfields. We collected some data over the last summer, and then we will be collecting more, and then we will be analyzing that data so that we will be able to make some comparisons moving forward.